At 7:13 in the morning, you open your banking app, 100,247, six figures, the number you spent years chasing, and the strange part is that you do not feel excited, you do not smile, you do not celebrate, you just stare at the screen because something is missing. For years, every time you opened this app, your body did the same thing. You expected bad news before the numbers even appeared. Maybe rent cleared before the paycheck, maybe the credit card posted overnight, maybe the mechanic finally called back. Maybe something small just became expensive. For a long time, your mornings started with a question. What went wrong? This morning is different. The number is bigger than it has ever been. But that is not what catches your attention. The fear is gone. Not smaller, not quieter. Gone. And standing there in the half-dark kitchen, coffee cooling beside you, you realize something nobody talks about when they tell you to save your first $100,000. For most people, nothing outside changes at six figures. The same apartment, the same car, the same job, the same coffee mug. The strange part is what happens inside. The money did not change your account first. It changed the way your mind reacts to uncertainty. And once that changes, you start noticing how much of your old life was built around fear. A grocery store on a Thursday night. Aisle 7. You pick something up. Look at the price. Put it back. Pretend you changed your mind. A gas station on a cold morning. The numbers on the pump keep climbing. You stop watching for a second, then look again anyway. A Tuesday at work. Payday is still 4 days away. You are answering emails, nodding in meetings, doing what needs to be done. But in the background, all day, one quiet calculation keeps running. Can nothing go wrong before Friday? Then your phone buzzes, unknown number. You already know who it is, the mechanic. You let it ring twice before answering, because bad news is easier to delay than hear. The repair is more than you hoped, less than you feared. Enough to change the month anyway. That was the real exhaustion, not disaster, possibility, one repair. One prescription, one stupid charge you forgot about, one badly timed expense, one small thing turning the month hostile. And the longer you live like that, the more normal it starts to feel. You start calling it adulthood, this low-grade panic, this constant mental budgeting, this habit of translating inconvenience into hours of labor. From the outside, your life still looks functional. You show up, you smile, you order coffee, you make plans, you tell people you are good. But underneath all of it, your peace depends on nothing unusual happening on a Tuesday. That was you before the number. Not reckless, not irresponsible, just fragile. And fragility changes the way the mind interprets everything. A bill feels bigger than it is. A setback feels personal. The future stops feeling like something you can shape and starts feeling like something you have to survive. So you start chasing relief. You tell yourself the stress will disappear once the number gets high enough. Then the number rises a little, and your life rises with it. You make more, spend a little more, protect the image, upgrade the comfort, keep the pressure alive. That is why six figures lands so strangely. Because when it finally happens, the first month does not feel like freedom. It feels protective. You check the app constantly, in bed, at your desk, at a red light, waiting in line for lunch. Not because you want it to grow, not yet. You just do not want it to fall back under. That becomes the new fear. Not losing everything, losing the proof. Because once you see six figures in your own account, memory starts behaving differently. Old decisions come back. The weekends you spent like someone trying to impress people who barely remember them. The clothes, the gadgets, the subscriptions. The quiet little leaks that once felt harmless because everybody else was doing the same thing. Now they do not feel harmless. Now they feel expensive. Not only in money, in time. That is what $100,000 exposes. Not just what you saved, what earlier patience could have become, what discipline might have compounded into, what all those ordinary yeses were really costing you. So no, the first month is not a clean transformation. It is relief mixed with suspicion, pride mixed with disbelief, safety mixed with the feeling that safety can still be taken away. Then life does what life always does. It tests the number. A tire goes flat on a Wednesday afternoon. You are standing beside the car in a parking lot, jacket half zipped, phone in one hand, tow estimate in the other. A year ago, this would have ruined the day before the money even left your account. Now you just breathe. You approve the payment, you get in the rideshare, you go home. A medical bill shows up, folded inside a thin white envelope. You sit at the kitchen table. Same mug, same light over the stove. You open it. You look at the total, and your heartbeat does not spike. That is the moment. Not when the balance crosses the line. When the surprise arrives and your nervous system does not. That is the real luxury. Not spending money without pain. Feeling no panic while it happens. You start sleeping differently after that. Not better every night. Not like your whole life turns soft. Just differently. You stop rehearsing disasters before bed. You stop waking up with the urge to check the app like a patient checking a pulse. You stop carrying every upcoming bill in your body. The future does not become certain, it just stops feeling hostile. And the second that happens, a new conflict enters. You start seeing other people differently. A coworker pulls into the lot with a newer car. A friend starts posting hotel rooms, expensive dinners, watches photographed beside whiskey glasses. At dinner, someone says, "You work hard. You have to enjoy your life." A year earlier, that might have sounded like freedom. Now it sounds like exposure. Because the version of you who built the $100,000 had to become someone. Someone patient, someone boring at the right times, someone willing to look unimpressive for longer than other people could tolerate, someone who could delay the visible reward in exchange for a quieter life. But now that the number exists, another voice shows up. You earn this. Relax a little. Upgrade. Stop acting like the old version of you. What is the point of having it if you still live like that? That is the new battle. Not making the money. Protecting the identity that made it possible. Lifestyle creep never enters the room announcing itself. It comes dressed better than that. It sounds like self-respect, like convenience, like finally matching the way your life is supposed to look, like fixing the one thing you have been denying yourself for years. You are standing in a store on a Saturday afternoon. Nothing huge, nothing insane, just something nicer, better materials, a more adult version, a small reward. You look at the price tag. You hear the argument start. You can afford it now. This is what the money is for. Normal people buy things. Stop being so careful. Then another voice answers. Normal people also keep restarting from zero. So you put it back. Nobody sees that moment. Nobody applauds it. Nobody needs to. But every private builds something the outside world cannot measure. A different kind of confidence. Then the shift follows you to work. Tuesday. Bad coffee. Too much fluorescent light. A meeting that should have been an email. Slides clicking past. A deadline moved forward for no good reason. Your boss says, "We need a little more from everyone this week." For years, your answer would have arrived before the sentence ended. Yes. Not because you agreed. Because you were trapped. That was what the paycheck used to buy. Obedience disguised as professionalism. But now something happens in the space before you answer. A pause. Small enough that nobody else notices. Inside that pause is a completely different life. You still need the income. You still care about the work. You still pay bills. You still show up Monday morning. But for the first time, the paycheck does not own every decision. And that changes things nobody around you can quite name. Your tone, your posture, your boundaries, the way you hear pressure, the way you negotiate, the amount of disrespect that sounds normal to you. This is where optionality begins, not when you quit. When you realize discomfort would not collapse you. That realization changes the way a person walks down a hallway. It changes how desperate you sound in an email. It changes how quickly you agree to things. It changes how much of yourself you hand over just to keep the room calm. And then another shift arrives, quieter than the others. Your brain stops living in weeks. That is what $100,000 really changes. Before, everything was this Friday, this bill, this due date, this next paycheck, this next emergency, this next tiny rescue. Afterward, your mind starts extending forward. 3 months, a year, 5 years. You stop asking, "Can I make it?" You start asking, "What kind of life am I building?" That is a different question, a quieter one, a more powerful one. It changes how you invest. It changes how you wait. It changes how little excitement you need from the process. You stop demanding constant evidence that you are winning. You stop chasing movement and calling it progress. You stop confusing urgency with importance. Patience gets easier once survival is no longer on fire. That is why people misunderstand the number. $100,000 is not magic. It does not make you rich. It does not solve identity. It does not turn your life cinematic. It does not remove uncertainty. What it does is much stranger than that. It teaches your brain to interpret uncertainty differently. And once uncertainty feels different, behavior changes. Once behavior changes, identity follows. That is why the outside of your life may look almost identical. Same apartment, same kitchen, same old mug, same city outside the window, same phone on the counter. Nothing in that scene would impress anybody. That is exactly why it matters. Because the transformation is happening somewhere nobody else can see. A few weeks later, maybe a few months, you wake up and do not reach for the phone right away. Not because the balance disappeared, because the panic did. The app is still there, the number is still there, but it has stopped functioning like a pulse check. It is no longer proof that you survived. It is distance. Distance from panic, distance from desperation, distance from the version of you who felt one surprise away from collapse. Most people think $100,000 buys freedom. It does not all at once. What it buys first is distance from fear. And once there is enough distance between you and fear, small things begin changing on their own. You speak more slowly, you choose more carefully, you wait longer, you think farther, you sleep deeper, you become harder to rush, harder to shame, harder to impress with things you no longer confuse for security. Not because you won, because you stopped fighting the same enemy every day. That morning at 7:13, nothing bad happened. That was the whole point. For years, your life was shaped by what might go wrong next. Now, for the first time, it is not. The room is quiet. The coffee is still warm. The phone stays face down on the counter. In that silence, you realize the number never changed your life the way you imagined. It changed the way your life feels from the inside. And that, more than the money itself, is what quietly changes who you become.